How
You
are
can
you?
see my good. You can see my dog. She decided to join with her little butt.
Oh, we might
How
get
are
an
you?
appearance from Zaylee at some point. She's been very needy lately.
That's cute. I feel like most cats are like, "Why are you home all the time?" So I like that she's squeaky.
Yeah, I think so. Her arthritis has been acting up, so she wants me to pet her all the time,
Oh,
which I
she's
feel
like,
bad, but
yeah, she's like, "Give me a massage."
yeah.
How have things been for you?
It's always weird answering that question. It's like,
Yeah,
good considering circumstances.
yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, same. I think I have like really, I think it's exacerbated my high highs and low lows, um, which just rolling with it, I guess. I'm just letting myself like have those bad days and letting myself enjoy the good days. And yeah, it's not even days, it's like hours. I feel very volatile.
Understandable. Your place is so cute.
Thank you. I think yours is too. I was like not trying to be nosy, but your flowers look so great. Your little bark art.
Thanks. It was
Is
funny.
that a wine fridge behind you?
Yeah. I did
Nice.
the remote design week conference, and it was funny reading the chat after my talk because people were like commenting on like, oh, look at her stainless steel kitchen and look at her decanter and just like, are they paying attention?
Yeah. You're like, come on, eyes up here, not here. I was it was so funny to me because I um, was just chatting with Kurt Kemple, and I don't know if you saw that meme that was like video calls, and there's always that one person that's clearly a streamer because they have the decked out background.
Yeah.
And I got on a video call with him, and he has like pink and purple lights in the back, and his hair is green, and he clearly has like the nice camera with the backlighting. And I was just like, you're that person. Like I feel so washed out with my like space in the background. So I thought about mounting a projector to the ceiling. Like I like my background, but if I ever wanted to do something where I wanted to have a flooded background, I thought it would be cute to have a projector that I can just pull down behind me.
That would be cool. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting some sort of portable screen thing, but I don't know. I'm like, do I really want to invest in all that? I did buy
Right.
a ring light, so I'm lit better now.
Ooh. Yeah. Did you do a ton of research on that? I get overwhelmed with buying things like ring lights and mics and stuff because I feel like there's so many options.
Yeah, I just found some vlogger blog that was like, here's the best of the best things, and picked one of the more affordable ones. So well, cool.
There.
Thanks everybody for joining. It's May Day. Hi. Thanks Tatiana for joining as well.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So one of the questions I like to start with, which we already kind of talked about how we're doing, but also, is there anything that you're learning from yourself about yourself from this experience?
Yeah, there was an article, I want to say in Daily Beast, that I read that really resonated with me at the beginning of all of this, which is that I think as someone who's experienced like a lot of trauma in my life and a lot of depression, it's been interesting to see how resilient I am, and I think also resourceful in finding ways to uh, do things that I can't do because of the limitations. And so I think I've learned to like appreciate that about myself, like especially with regards to cooking, because I mostly use imperfect produce right now because going to the grocery store is just like really bad for my mental health. And so I kind of am at the whim of whatever they have available for each week, which has made me really like clever in how I use the products that are available for the week and crafting myself like interesting and nourishing meals.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, we already have a question. Hi, Todd. Todd's been coming to pretty much all of these, except
Thanks.
the last one. He said, hello, my question is, I am designing a design system and taking into account that when I leave, that the company will not only interview, but hire someone unlike myself, uh, white, male, etc. When going over my plan, stakeholders asked about diversity inclusion and have zero idea about it, being a primarily white area, 1% Black, 1% or 97% white. How do I get across to stakeholders the importance of diversity, inclusive aspects in not only the job, but design systems? Thank you. Wow, that's an awesome
Wow.
question.
Yeah. I'm reading over it again so I can digest it. Gosh, that's so challenging. I'm going to make some assumptions. I don't know if you can ask clarifying questions, but I think one aspect about that is that intersecting with right now, we're all working remotely. So I'm curious about like those demographics I'm imagining are specific to that region. But I'm wondering about the idea, speaking of being resourceful, since many of us are working remotely, if that possibility makes it to extend beyond the geographic region into the digital region, which is of course like a lot more diverse. So that's one aspect. But to answer the question in terms of the inclusive aspects of the job, but of the design systems, I think there's so many ways to answer this. I would say the first thing I think about is how everything we design is influenced by our bias, and how our bias is going to be compounded by confirmation bias and being around people that have similar experiences to us. And so our system is only going to be as expansive as the people. And Gina, I know you always say design systems is about people, and I think that's especially true right here, is that our design system is reflective of the people who created it. So I think that understanding that influence hopefully would encourage them to look beyond. And I know that Todd's calling out race here, but also in terms of ability, in terms of orientation, all the things. What do you think, Gina?
Yeah, that is a very challenging question. Also because I've not been having to advocate for that with stakeholders as much lately. Like when I was at Salesforce, I was actually proud that my team was like one guy and everyone else was a woman. And a lot of them were women of color. And so I felt pretty fortunate. But I know that it's not every organization is like that. I mean, there's obviously the part of inclusive design that's around accessibility, and I think that's important. Yeah, I'm not really quite sure how to answer this right now. Yeah, and let me think about that one.
Yeah, and I'm curious if in the organization, if Todd's seen examples where, because of the biases that exist, like there are tangible aspects of their design system that Todd could pull up in order to say, well, the reason why we arrived at this one particular solution was because of the perspectives reflected within our team. If we had a more diverse array of perspectives, we may have been able to caught this, which would have saved us all a lot of heartache and time. So I think like whenever we can tie these like abstract concepts of diversity, inclusion, blah, 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 to tangibles within our context, I think it makes it harder for people to dismiss it and to see the like cause and effect of it.
Looks like Todd commented saying, there is no design system. This is from the ground up that I am building for the future.
Okay. I think I would answer that slightly differently than maybe your add to it. I think what I would say then is that if you're building a design system to the future, then in one of my talks, I talk about like how everything in building socially inclusive design systems, I talk about how like every decision you make within your design system will manifest in ways that will extend beyond your control. And I think that's an aspect of design systems that we usually see the benefit of, which is the efficiency component. But then the scary side of that is that if you build an inaccessible component, it will manifest itself into an inaccessible system at large.
Cool. Let's move on to the next question. If you have further questions on that, Todd, maybe we can come back to it after. Kevin asks, in thinking about the longevity of a UX design career, how might one steer their career towards speaking, consulting, and leadership, especially if you've just been an individual contributor for most of the time?
I think the best way to do this, I found, is to just start doing it. And I know that that sounds a bit reductionist, but if you start saying, I'm a speaker, and you put yourself out there and say, I'm available for speaking events, or hosting your own speaking event yourself, especially now, I think that people are becoming more accepting of remote events in general. I think that this is a great opportunity. And reaching out to people that already have a trusting relationship with you and asking them to give you an opportunity in those realms will then give you some case studies that you can then start to advertise within your own website and social media and such.
Yeah, and this is going to be a case of do as I say and not as I do, because I'm terrible at this, but blogging is really, really helpful in getting yourself out there. I used to blog a lot, and that's kind of what helped me get into speaking and consulting and all that. Granted, Twitter's kind of taken over my focus, and so I don't blog as much as I used to, but I do attribute that trajectory happening because I was blogging in the beginning of my career. I should get back into it.
Yeah, I feel you on that, having like several pending blog posts. I also think there's a savings aspect there. If you write something, it helps to solidify that idea. You get people's questions and feedback. And that step from turning a blog post into a talk saves a huge mental hurdle of just like starting the talk from the beginning. You already have like a beginning, middle, and end. And then it's about figuring out if you want to add demos to it and enhancing it. But you've already kind of done half of the work. And then you're also making your content more accessible to more audiences. Some people prefer to read content and learn that way. Other people prefer to watch video and talks and learn that way. So it's a twofer.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. That's something I've been doing more recently with my talks, is writing it like a blog post first and then translating that into slides. And I mean, the talk I gave at Remote Design Week was basically 2 posts I wrote merged together.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I can plagiarize myself, right?
You're like, this sounds really familiar. You're like, did you read my blog post? It's probably why.
Yeah. Mark, hey, love you, Mark. He asked, I'm about to move to a new job where my boss is a white male expat in Southeast Asia who doesn't have much experience on issues on equity and inclusivity in terms of race. How do I approach talking about inclusivity and diversity being new to a team where it is an Asian team, but the people in power are more white male expats? That sounds very challenging.
Yeah, I think that this is an area where I try, like speaking from my own experience, I try to first like use my spidey instincts to see how comfortable I feel and how much risk I'm willing to place into a situation. If I get the sense that this person is going to be fragile and not accepting of this conversation, I'm going to take my time to have those conversations, and I'm going to figure out how to build trust in other areas. And it's unfortunate that we have to do that kind of labor, but for me, it's like, this is my livelihood, this is my employment, so I need to navigate this in a way that's sustainable. I think that it's also simultaneously helpful to just have truthful conversations and almost offering yourself as a resource and saying, look, I'm obviously Southeast Asian, I have the context of having lived here and grown up here, and I'm happy to provide insight that you might not have as an expat and being white. And so like, I would love if we could work together to figure out a way to ensure that things that affect the local population here, which I'm well versed in, are seriously considered when we're when we're approaching our work.
That's awesome. And then David has a question. Greetings from Stockholm. Oh, I miss traveling. I love Stockholm so much. um, and thanks for joining us from Stockholm. Let's see. The question is, you mentioned that you have recently learned about yourself personally. What is at the top of technical things you're learning at the moment?
Oh, this is a fun combination. I'm working on such a wide array of projects all over the map. I think the things that I'm really sharpening up on right now are React TypeScript. I'm working on a project where I'm doing that, which is involving some like D3, which is teaching me a lot about data visualization. And then simultaneously, I'm doing a lot of work to understand like the very deep nuance of different accessibility aspects. So this morning I was doing a lot of research on like the abbreviation element and its limitations within screen readers and braille readers. So I guess I'm kind of using this opportunity to really deep dive into like understanding styled components and working within React, which is all very fun and interesting.
Cool. Have you, I want to say it's called Reach. It's supposed to be like, what I'm thinking of, it's a React library where they've spent a lot of time making the components accessible. I think it's called Reach. I could be wrong.
Oh, I have to look into that. That's great. Because I think that, yeah, out of box accessibility can be really hard given the way that, like just given the shift in the way that React is created. And so a lot of it feels hacky. I feel like it's been really great to like look at resources like Marcy Sutton working in Gatsby and her prioritizing accessibility. I think that that's been really helpful for me to look at those sorts of resources to tie those two concepts together in my mind. Because right now they're like very far apart in my mind.
Yeah, I've been playing around with Gatsby. I'm looking at moving the Clarity website over, and also the Design Tokens community group website is going to be on Gatsby. So it's like my chance to tinker with React and try to figure things out.
Yeah. Do you find, as someone who has like such deep CSS knowledge, do you find like what observations are you making in that shift?
I keep going back and forth on whether I want to use the modules stuff or not. So modules, in case anyone on the call isn't familiar, and I might use some terminology wrong here because I'm still learning, but it's a little different from how I traditionally think about CSS, because normally I would try to compile everything into one single style sheet. And so I would use like SAS imports and things like that, where modules is different in that you are importing a style sheet specific to that component, and it can't touch anything outside of that component. And I like the idea of that, but I am trying to figure out the balance of where do I actually want things to cascade versus where do I want to keep things encapsulated. And so I keep kind of going back and forth, and like maybe I should just have everything encapsulated. And then I'm like, well, this thing I'm repeating in like these 5 components, so maybe that should actually not be, So it's just like, it's just interesting to try to like challenge myself into when is it right to, encapsulate it versus when is it right to cascade.
Yeah, I find that I'm really struggling with that as well. Like now, like my own website is built on 11T, but there's like a really silly performance and accessibility competition that Zach, who created 11T, puts out every Sunday, and I'm supremely competitive. So I'm like sitting there like trying to like figure out which of my CSS I can toss, because my website is like my experimental platform, right? So it's like where I figured out how to use SAS maps and lists and all this stuff. And now a lot of it's obsolete. And that's one thing that I really do like about working within style components and modules is like all of your CSS is being used. It will tell you if your CSS is not being used, more or less. Like, of course, you can still write redundant CSS, but it's hard to like make that shift from like everything is a global style system and everything that I create needs to be part of that system to everything is its own thing, like you're saying.
Yeah. So Mark asked, I'm about to give a talk, a UX talk in Australia online that touches on inclusion, privilege. Any tips? Because I'm a bit scared that people will hate me since this is my first speaking event abroad and it's a mostly white audience. Also greetings from the Philippines. Hey, first of all, congratulations. I just want to say that.
Yeah.
I'll give it to Tatiana.
I mean, the speaking advice I always give to someone for their first talk is that the only thing that you have to do with your talk is to be true to yourself. And that no matter what I mean, I know Jina can attest to this, like no matter what you say, whether it's in a tweet or on your own blog or in a talk or in a conference room, in a meeting, like some people will really resonate with what you say and some people won't. And the people who it resonates with, there will be people that really like it and people who don't. That's always going to be the case. I always laugh because whenever conferences like put up videos for talks, mine usually has the most thumbs down. And at first it's hard to not take that personally, right? Because I think obviously all those things are created to tap off of our insecurities and whatnot. But I remind myself that a lot of the thumbs down can be for so many reasons. And I trust that I'm a solid speaker and that if you say something that is controversial at all, which anytime you're talking about inclusion and privilege and things that people don't talk about frequently, you're going to make people mad. I mean, and then I look at talks where people are just like having an opinion about how to code something and people get just as mad, right? So like, of course they're going to get mad at something that's as personal as talking about privilege.
Yeah, and I would add to that, if you do end up getting any not so awesome feedback, keep going and push forward. At the very beginning of my speaking career, I got some of the worst feedback and I almost decided, I was like, speaking's not for me. But I did keep doing it and now I'm happy that I keep doing it. So I would say like, just like, I know it'll suck if you do get any of that, but like keep going is what I would definitely push you for.
I'm so glad you kept going.
Yeah, oh man, I should share with you some of the comments I used to get, like even on what I was wearing, like it was ridiculous. But this was like over 10 years ago, so the industry we're in was not quite as woke back then, and so certain people would say certain things without thinking about it more often, I think. Lenya asks, hi, I'm a designer based in New York City and recently lost my job due to COVID-19. I'm sorry. However, I've been seeking full-time opportunities for months and have noticed distressing and disappointing trends in hiring practices. What are your thoughts on the current state of hiring? Thanks in advance.
I would say that hiring in tech sucks. And I've made this, I think, yeah, and I know, Jina, we've shared anecdotes with each other as well, but like, I just think that there are so many bad hiring practices in tech in particular. I think that like every aspect of it, from how job posts are listed, what the expectations are. I mean, I think one of the biggest shifts we're seeing right now is in that idea of remote work being more widely acceptable because able-bodied people are affected by not being able to go into the office, when disabled folks for forever have been saying, like, I can do my job remotely. Like, there's no reason I need to physically go into the office. And I think that that extends to hiring practices right now. I think that hiring practices are not good. And I will just be candid that like it's been impossible for me to find full-time work. And I think it's taken me a long time to accept that maybe working independently is the best path for me. So I know that's not something that everyone can do, but I'm curious if there's opportunities to still find work without trying to seek traditional employment, because I think things are so volatile right now. So I hope you're being kind to yourself and recognizing that it's not you, it's the world, and it's also systematically bad practices in hiring within tech.
Yeah, I would say when this all started, I lost a lot of consulting projects just like in one go, whoosh, gone. And so I thought about, maybe I should go in house. I mean, in house being still in my house, but you know,
Nice.
yeah. But the blocker for me is that I'm like, I don't have the energy right now to throw into putting a portfolio together. And I know that that is like a requirement pretty much across the board. Like even if you were going for a leadership role, they would want to see some sort of portfolio. And so I'm just like, I'm, I don't, I don't have the energy right now to do that. And so, um, I've also seen a lot of um, talking about hiring practices, people that do like tests and things like that. And I don't have the energy for that either. But I want to say something positive for for Lenya though, so it's not like super negative. But Tatiana already said like um, it is a really it's the world, it's not you. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going through this, but I know there are a ton of people that are looking. In my design system Slack, for example, I still see job posts being posted in the jobs channel. Like maybe not as frequently as prior to this, but still at a pretty regular pace. So there's definitely opportunities out there. So good luck. I hope you get one. I've been trying to leave my job for a should I cut this out of the recording? Let me know. Very long time. One of the reasons for leaving is because of my team. However, during this time of uncertainty, I've decided to stay put to jobs due to job stability. What advice or tips do you have to stay afloat despite how crappy things can be?
Ooh, this is like my area of expertise. I've definitely stayed in jobs too long. I think that when things are crappy, I think like several things work for me, which is that I allow myself to not invest as much of myself into things and to do the job that I'm paid to do. And I think that it's really hard for a lot of us who, and I think you're probably like this, like who want to make things better, and we take on a lot of things that are outside of our job descriptions for the betterment of ourselves and for everyone. I think it's okay to step back from some of those duties we may have assigned to ourselves and just do the core tasks at hand. And then like finding something that you really do enjoy about your job, even if it's small, and mentally deciding to put your energy into that. And if there's not something, which I hope there is, but if there's not something, then allowing yourself to shift that energy to something you do love outside of work, and reminding yourselves of enjoyable things. I think right now in these times, the most important thing is to like allow ourselves to find joy where we can, and to allow other people to find joy where they can, as long as it doesn't hurt us. So I'm sorry that things aren't great, but that's helped me in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I have definitely struggled with this myself. I'm not going to name companies, but there have definitely been companies that I was there longer than I needed to be. And it's hard. Like I basically kind of like flock towards self-care practices when when I'm dealing with those things. So yeah, I'll just leave it there. Oh, we're already at time. How that like flew by.
Because
All
you're
right.
having so much fun.
Yeah, then I will ask you one last question. Um, is there anything coming up for you that we can look out for, as well as ways the community can support you?
Oh, thank you. I think that right now what I'm really excited about is coming full circle, trying to commit myself to writing more and to writing more tutorials. And so right now I'm in the middle of writing an 11T beginner guide, and I'm really challenging myself to challenge general beginners guides that don't include things what what are package managers, like what does that even mean, what is npm, like what are these things that we have to deal with that we all sort of take for granted in beginner tutorials with coding. And so I think that that's something I'm super excited about. there will be some remote conferences that I'll be joining and announcing in the near future. The details are all still being worked out. But yeah, just trying to create fun things and posting a lot of photos of my outfits when I get dressed.
Yeah, I've posted so many selfies on Instagram since this all started, and I wasn't a selfie frequent poster person before. So
Yeah, I think that's what I mean is like whatever we need to do to find joy. And like I keep reminding myself, like, whenever I see something, to first see it through the lens of like, is that maybe something like a small thing that's bringing that person joy? Like, then what can I do to help encourage that? Because I think we all need a little bit more of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tatiana, and thank you
Thank you.
everybody else that joined today. All right, have a good day, and thanks again.
Bye.